There we go. Hey, guys. Doesn't even matter any of what I said today because my mic wasn't on until just now. So, okay, great. Let's start over. Um, let's begin at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Okay, it's the full moon. I feel very mentally ill. Are we up to speed yet? That's about it. Let's go. We were checking out our volcanoes. We got a lot of regular suspects here. No news from Fuego. Let's see. Friday the 15th. Swarm of small earthquakes has been occurring beneath Taide volcano. Canelone volcano continues its eruption. Let's see. Nope. I'm going to go back to, Samiru erupting. You can see its little smoke plumes there and the ash shadows that it's casting. Ducono, you can see the plume of smoke going like to the northwest off of that. Tenerife, Canary Islands in Spain, a new seismic swarm started to occur beneath the volcano. At least 500 earthquakes detected, where similar activity has been recorded in previous years. The sequence began with 10 small earthquakes, and okay, we will be able to see that on, let me see, okay, yeah, I hate that. Let's turn that off. I hate that. Let me make sure that my feeds are turned on for Europe. Let's go to do I have a Euro that's 0.0 and larger? I guess. Okay, this is not showing me anything in Spain, but oh, this fucked up my dates too. So I'm trying to see what happened today. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, it's not going to show me anything lower than, ooh, actually, let me just go ahead and let's switch to seismic activity. Let's look at our earthquakes because make sure I'm showing you guys the right screen. This is quite cool. So I'm going to show you in my little screen. I'm going to be able to point to it on the screen, but in the big screen, I will be able to show you the, let's resize this. There we go. Okay. So here, do I like that? Okay. You can see I'm pointing. I don't like the pointing. Okay. But it's going to work either way. Let me just say something without being absolutely batshit insane for a second. It's impossible, actually. I am very mentally ill. Okay. We are sick people. Ooh, wow. Okay. That is very out of date. So let me actually fix my feeds here and turn that last 50 days one off. Yeah, I don't have anything that's going to show that anyway, so There we go. Okay, I knew that was off because it was still showing the Cuba 6.7. Okay, let's just start here. 4.9 at 33 kilometers depth, 4.3 at 22, and a 3.9 at 69 kilometers depth here in the Caribbean. As we move into the United States, just in the last half day, we've got a little explosion of activity if I actually put it on a full day. Our usual stacks are showing up pretty well. Yeah, you can see my mouse, so I don't have to point up here. But I will be looking at the screen right here, just so you can get a better view of the side of my head. I don't know. Once again, it is the full moon today, and the full moon conjunct Uranus is occurring on top of my natal sun and Mercury. So not only am I feeling very mercurial, I feel a little unstable. And that is valid because it is part of the transits of the planets right now. I am allowed to feel a little shaky. I have a headache, and it feels like my head wants to my brain wants to explode out of my head. Like I feel like my brain is actually larger than my skull right now, but it's okay. That's fine. That is simply indicated by tonight's transits, and that explains so much about what is going on. Don't have to feel bad. Okay, let's continue talking about earthquakes instead of my mental well-being, shall we? I'm doing fine. Do not get concerned. I am doing fine. The ops have not gotten to me. The haters will not get me down. There are no haters, but if there were, they would not be getting me down. Where's the stack of earthquakes here in South Texas? Pleasanton, Texas, just south of San Antonio. Let's see. Well, not quite in Pleasanton. It is on Lucas Creek, just like south and east, more east of Pleasanton, in Atascosa County, Texas. Okay, whatever. That is where there's like a huge stack of 2.9. What is that? 4 kilometers, 8 kilometers, 2 kilometers, 6. Something's going on there. I wonder what's located there. It's at like a bend in a creek and kind of on a mountain there. Maybe there was a landslide. I don't even know. Let's keep going with my conjecture. Yeah, mid-range 3s and 4s in the tropics, pretty typical. Nothing coming out of South America today, surprisingly. Our most recent quake here is this 1.5 up in Alaska. That is a 1.5 at 1 kilometer's depth. They've only had some like 1s and a few 2s here as we get closer to is that Anchorage or Juneau? I remember. Which one is this? Where's this location? Okay, when I right click on you, you're supposed to pop up. Okay. Chitina, Alaska, in the Chugach Mountains, near Cordova. Just inland of the Kenai Peninsula. Okay, Anchorage, that's the place it's near. It's, probably just like 6 hours from Anchorage, so very close. Yeah, Juneau's the one over. Anchorage is this one. Geography, and I'm just not Do not worry. I am doing fine. I'm doing well, even. It's just, man, this full moon's hitting, guys. Got some earthquakes over here in Hawaii. 4.9 here near the H-shaped plate boundary in Japan, a 4.5 at 48 kilometers depth. We had a 4.4 here in the Volcano Islands as we get to the Marianas Islands. Deep one. This is a deep one at 512 kilometers depth. Let's see what else we got. What else we got? 4.5 here in the Philippines. That is maybe a deep one. Yeah, 83 kilometers depth. Not that deep. Here in China, we had a 4.4 at 10 kilometers depth. We had a 4.4 at 124 kilometers depth off of Sumatra. We have a 4.3 in the Banda Sea at 117 kilometers depth. We got a 4.5, 4.6, and 4.5, all in the mid to deep ranges off the coast of Papua New Guinea. We had a 5.0, and what else? What's this? 4.8 at 18 kilometers depth, and the 5.0 was at 10 kilometers depth. 4.9 here near the wave-shaped plate boundary near Tonga. Got 5.4 at 10 kilometers depth and a 4.9 at 118. So that's kind of a barbell, a little bit of a barbell. We have 5.5 here on the Antarctic plate. That's a 5.5 at, again, 10 kilometers depth. Very, very popular depth to have an earthquake at in my short time of observation. Where did I miss? I guess over here. 5.2 out on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. That was at 10 kilometers depth as well. Big shocker. 4.2 here at just off the coast of Italy, but which part? San Nicola Arcella. That is near nothing. Maratea. Belvedere Marittimo. Okay, is it offensive if I say it like that? I don't know. It's not Naples. It's not near Naples. It is right off of, there seems to be some alpines near it. It is in this little, curve of Italy, though. Like this little curve, the curve of the, right before it goes to the boot. Okay, let's go to, and a 4.5 here. In Turkey, near the Black Sea, not right on the Black Sea, but on a river that leads to the Black Sea in the mountains there, up in the northeastern side of Turkey. Yeah, let's see. Let us see. Let's go now to checking out our, let's check out our meteorology. Let's check out the weather on today's Weather Tonight, because that's the name of the podcast. Okay. Hello. Welcome for everybody who's new here. Hi, I'm Cloud. I am a comedian and a meteorologist, and I call that being a meteorologist. And there's a joke about there's a joke in there. I'm not going to make it tonight. Brain broke. Let's go to, we're looking at our radar. Oh, wait, I didn't switch to the correct perception here. Let's do this one. I not visible. I want this one bigger. Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at a little bit of a low pressure circulation over here in Montana and Idaho. Not much going on except cloud cover everywhere. Let's take a look at, maybe we can see some satellite to show our cloud cover. Yeah, this is some nasty weather today. My weather report of what happened in my neck of the woods, which, if you don't know, is Western North Carolina. It was a gray over. There was some layering in the atmosphere, like a little layer cake. There was an inversion layer above loft that sandwiched down all the thermal gradient with cold at the bottom and warm above it, and then going back up to the top, cold again. As you rise with height, you should fall in temperature anyway. Wow, look at that. This is a really good view of where the airstream is coming from. Down here, like a fire hose coming from the, kind of like the Pineapple Express, only it's blowing in clear air. Over here all day, it's been very overcast, nasty, gross. You can see in the East Coast, really just hugging under this high pressure zone everywhere from Texas and Arkansas and Missouri to Tennessee and mountainous North Carolina, all of Appalachia, just hanging out in nasty little clouds here. Nasty little clouds hanging out in the Appalachian area. And that's me. I'm a nasty little cloud hanging out in the Appalachian area. Off the coast, we had that front that swept through. This is what brought in all the nasty, cold, rainy, weather. It is now moved offshore. The occluded front is spinning around on itself. So this is the cyclolysis stage, where this should be spinning down into a littler and littler vortex as it kind of eats itself. The cyclone cuts itself off from getting any new input. This is what is called when it happens to a person, being in an echo chamber. The cyclone is no longer taking any opinions from outside parties. It is just listening to itself and its little mentally ill thoughts. And it will just spiral downwards until it collapses. And that is the death of a cyclone. That is what we're trying to avoid here today in my life. We are avoiding cyclolysis. We're trying really hard not to spiral down. But this storm right here, it definitely is spiraling down. There will be some pretty nice weather tomorrow, though, hopefully. Oh, look at these weird clouds. It looks like they're kind of like rippling. Ripple effect right there. What an interesting formation right here over what quite island. Do you see this kind of like springing up of like somebody just took a marker and wiped there is where there's going to be clouds? It's like somebody was drawing in the clouds. It's very weird. Not saying that's what happened. Of course, obviously. This is weird with a low pressure system with clear air right next to it. Maybe my brain's a little too broke to understand this right now. Perhaps I, meteorologists, just don't have an explanation for what happened in the Midwest today. Perhaps just math that is a little too weird for me to get. Perhaps. Or perhaps fill in the blank. Okay, we filled in the blank with some fun answers there. That was some pretty good ones. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think is happening here in this very interesting picture. I would love to know what your thoughts are on what occurred here today over the Four Corners area into the plains. It's kind of interesting. It looks really weird. It looks like somebody took an eraser, just erased certain portions and then a marker and drew certain portions there. It's very cool. Very cool weather today. Well, we should expect cool weather. It is the winter. It's the fall, actually. It's the fall. It's been the fall officially since the autumnal equinox. Hello, viewers out there. I would love to hear from you. If you want to drop anything in the chat, feel free. I've got probably more viewers right now because YouTube algorithm sensed that I was talking about weather being weird. And there are a lot of YouTube heads out there who just love when the weather is kind of weird. You love when it's a little wonky. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on from this weird weather because there's no explaining that. I'm not going to explain that right now. I'm never gonna even attempt to. I will never say anything about I feel like I should be wearing a tinfoil hat. I now will be going to check out our Schumann resonances because as we move up, we are going to the global system. Ooh, look at that. The resonance is really peaking right recently. 15th was technically the day of the full moon, but this is where I'm experiencing the full moon. So I'm going to say very interesting. Now let me see what the clouds looked like over Tomsk, Russia today. Oh, very cloudy indeed in Russia. So they probably could have had some weather affecting the Schumann resonances. But again, as we know, weather should not be considered a confounding variable when it comes to observing the Schumann resonances because the heartbeat of the Earth actually happens through the weather. These Schumann resonances are expressed through weather. Don't know how much clearer I can make it. These are the electrical impulses that push the heartbeat of the Earth. Lightning strikes can't confound the data that is based upon sensing a lightning strike. Anyway, that's my little rant about people saying, oh, well, if there was rain, you can't say the Schumann resonances mean anything. Bullshit. That's what they are. Hello. The Schumann resonances are, let's take a look here. This is a vertical, what we're looking at here is a graph of the full range of frequencies between 0 and 40 hertz in the vertical column above the Earth at the point of observation. This is a map of how strongly that frequency showed up at that point in time. Time is on the x-axis, frequency is on the y-axis. So the frequency of what? We're looking at actually not just lightning strikes, but electrical impulses or electromagnetic fields frequency. So this is kind of showing us, it's kind of like looking at a brain scan for the entire world. When you look at a brain scan of your brain, you look at multiple points all over the brain, but they don't just sense like this is your brain went 7 at this point in time. They actually get a full range of 0 to 40 and show you how much 7 is in that, how much 15 is in that. You'll see these modality bands, or you'll see these bands horizontally of prevalent frequencies. These are the resonances. These are the resonant frequencies that are kind of stacked. Why do I want to say like magnetic floating plates? They are, it's not a standing wave either. These are the frequencies that show up the most frequently, and where that frequency band shows up is actually measured in a different graph. The average frequency, the average hertz that this mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, and mode 4 show up at goes up and down. It fluctuates a little bit within like 1 or 2 hertz. And when we see the brighter colors here, that indicates that more of that frequency has shown up at that point in time. When you see a lot of frequencies going white like this, that means that the full swath from like 2 hertz here to a little past 8, so like 10 hertz, all of these low frequencies amplified. So that would be like kind of maybe a bell curve or a wave of, we heard all these frequencies at once. Let me show you what the similarities are between this graph and the recording of a human voice. This is one of my favorite exercises to explain what the Schumann resonances are. This is the sound of the voice of the Earth. Here in just a second. I think I need to change my settings in my computer because my settings have it sensing a microphone that's not working. Microphone, Bigfoot. There we go. Okay, now I can do it. All right, there we go. Is this sensing the camera? Let me refresh. Hello, 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 hello. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so as you see, you can see the spectrogram of my voice. That is on screen right now. This is kind of what the Schumann resonances are for the planet. If we could hear the music of 0 to 40 hertz, we would hear it as a voice, like the speaking of the planet. This is what the voice of the planet sounds like right now. That all of these frequencies are created through the electromagnetic field changes that occur as weather processes, as well as through things like the power grid, human activities in nature, the roaring of oceans, the moving of landslides, all processes that induce an electromagnetic field will be that field will be vibrating at a certain frequency. And that is why we're bringing up the spectrogram, is that this is an example of what it looks like to have a swath of frequencies displayed as like a histogram of how much of each frequency is showing up to make each different sound. So as you're seeing this on screen, you're listening to my voice and you're seeing my voice. You can see when I do different types of diction and intonation. You can even see when I go like, ooh. Do you see that sine wave looking thing that happened when I went up and down like that? That is what happens when there is like one very clear voice. My voice is made up of about, it's kind of, my voice has a large range of frequencies in it because I've got thicker vocal cords than your average woman. But I also I talk in a register of voice that people with vocal cords this thick don't really talk in a lot. So I have fry on my voice. I have a little bit more represented in my voice than a very clear voice. Like, let's say a flute. Flute shows only these few frequencies. And it's got its overtones. Those are the tones that give it the timbre. But the timbre is determined by the wide range of varied frequencies and the ratio at which they show up in a voice. But you could also see something like a drum machine that just goes like, has vertical lines. That's because it's more rhythm and lots of even sounds at the same time. Now, a trombone with a lot of overtones and resonances will show a really nice, like, bell curve shaped distribution of which frequencies are showing up. A bird, pretty clear tone. You can see really closely to where the tone is going. Wine glass, a really resonant and clear tone. It only picks up like one frequency at a time. So different from my voice. This is what my voice looks like. Now, when we look at the Schumann resonances, this is what the voice of the earth looks like. So we've got these vertical stripes. That's more like a drum. That's more like a thunderclap. When we see one larger fluctuation in intensity, that could be like the diurnal variations in the weather ramping up in the daytime and kind of settling down at night. Everything's excited by solar activity. But wait, I haven't even checked what you commented. Okay, why 40 hertz? So this is a measurement of sound. So the Schumann resonances are just like this, but for sounds, and only up to 40 hertz, which we can't hear. Kind of, yes. They are actually sound. They could produce sound waves, but they are not really within our range of hearing, but they are because of the overtones. We can hear like you wouldn't hear the lowest part of a crack of thunder, but we hear the result of that through the sky and bouncing off of clouds and other air particles. So we are hearing the thing, but we're not hearing just the source of it. This is sound is always the vibration of molecules. It is kind of like a spectrogram of the voice of the earth. That's the best way I can explain it. The Earth's atmosphere and its surface create a capacitor where charge is slightly separated, and that charge is dissipated between those two layers within that capacitor. That capacitance is brought back to zero, or like the capacitor discharges through lightning strikes and other forms of weather that induce changes in the vertical electromagnetic field gradient. That is all what's being measured in the Schumann resonances. What this has to do with us and weather is that this is a higher order thinking of what's happening in the weather. And this is one of the links between terrestrial atmospheric weather and space weather. Man, when I'm talking about this stuff, my headache goes away. It's like everything else in the world doesn't matter. When I can actually zero in on and explain this kind of stuff, it helps my brain calm down so much. I feel so much less crazy when I can talk about the waves. It's just like very good for me. Thank you for letting me explain this. Thanks for asking. Cylindro punctiaceus. Cylindro punctiaceus. I don't know how to say that, but I like it. Sounds cylindrical. Okay, so this is a measurement. This is one measurement that was taken in Tomsk, Russia today, yesterday, and the day before. So that is like taking an EEG reading of your brain, but only at one electrode point. Unfortunately, we don't have a full mind map mesh of the Earth's Schumann resonances everywhere. We've only got a few research stations that are taking these measurements regularly. One in Tomsk, Russia is one of them. There's also some in Cumiana, Italy. There are 6 that are monitored by the HeartMath Institute. And I don't have time to go into why the HeartMath Institute monitors them. Well, I guess I do. It's related to the way that your heartbeat works. I can't explain that right now because I have not studied HeartMath that much. This is the HeartMath Institute's Schumann resonances power. This is 6 different points that they measure. Well, actually, right now it looks like only 3 stations are up. But this is 3 different points. And when you take like a brain scan, you would have like 20, 25, 30 different points in the map of nodes that go all around your head to sense brainwaves there. I made a jump to brainwaves without explaining it. Sorry. Just like we have a spectrogram of waves that make up the sound of your voice, we also have a spectrum of waves that make up the activity in your brain, and it's different at every location because it's all a gradient and changing and very in flux. The Earth, too, has different Schumann resonance powers and frequencies at every different point on the globe. And it's very unfortunate that we don't have more sensing stations, because that would mean we got a better idea of how these things fluctuate and how weather is tied in with it and how it affects people, politics, luck, I don't know, things on the ground. We would just know how it works a little better if we had more data. But we don't quite have enough data to make like any real conclusions about like, oh, when it spikes to here, this stuff happens. It's more like, yeah, you can probably tell that that's a rainy day, and on a rainy day, you might expect more car accidents or something like that. Or it's a full moon. You might expect people to be acting crazy on a full moon. Still not really explaining why that is happening. Still nowhere near being ready to explain why that happens. Oh, I forgot to close my spectrogram tab. Anyway, that is my summary of that part. I'm the same way with my specialties. Oh, you're a biologist? That's really cool. Okay, welcome to my show. It's not a very big or popular show, but I need to talk about this. I have an innate need to talk about the weather. So Heart Math Institute has some heart math is a really interesting concept. And there's training and research going on. It's about coherence between these frequencies and the way that your heartbeat. This is also a cool spectrogram calendar of all those places where we take measurements. Interesting data has been coming from Lithuania recently, where we see this kind of like wavy oscillation showing up in it. That's like singing almost showing up. But usually you'll look at them and they'll look pretty normal, like day and night, like night and day, just a little bit of a brightening up in the daytime and a calming down at night. Okay. But that brings me to something like solar wind speed. That is another thing that we measure. This is the next layer up. So the Schumann resonances are happening in the Earth's atmosphere and ionosphere kind of sometimes. But really, the next level up, as we gradiate outwards with our vibrations, the next vibrations that we come to in the weather of the universe is the magnetosphere and the interplanetary magnetic field and the solar weather that's coming off the sun, and even larger than that, the gravitational pull that the planets have on each other, which is so minuscule that there is not good data on the variations in it yet. But that's because it's really fucking hard to calculate. Also hard to observe, but mostly just really hard to calculate. It's like a 9-body problem instead of a 3-body problem. Only a 3-body problem would be if they're all exerting equal force on each other, and the 9-body problem is that they're exerting different tiers of forces onto each other. So all with one central point they're rotating around. So there's a little bit of a challenge calculating gravitational effects of planets on each other, but that is my personal opinion of how planets affect us, which I'll get to. Let's take a look at our magnetosphere movies today from NOAA. What's the total time measured? 24 hours. Thank you. You learned. That's cool. Okay. Go play with that Google Chrome extension. It's really fun. Let me see if I can drop that link in the chat real quick. That Chrome Music Lab is a really, really fun place to play with waves. And the total time measured on that is the location that is 72 hours on that particular spectrograph. So this is, I'm highlighting, if you're watching back and you can't click on the chat for whatever reason, it's musiclab.chromeexperiments.com/spectrogram is where you can look at like the spectrogram of your voice. It's really cool. And it looks just like the Schumann resonances because it is a graph of the distribution of frequencies. Okay. Now let's look at, once we zoom out of that part, we get to the magnetosphere. Once we're out of the atmosphere, we get to the magnetosphere, which is like an atmosphere around the atmosphere. It's where the pressure is so low and the air molecules, electrons, etc., are so rarefied that we measure pressure in nanopascals, whereas on the Earth's surface, we measure in hectopascals. Nano is on the other side of zero as hecto. Hecto is many, nano is like so many less. There are just so many less pressure values. The air molecules are exerting so much less pressure on each other that we measure in nanopascals instead of hectopascals. This is like the atmosphere beyond the atmosphere. And this magnetosphere movie is showing you kind of the flow stream, or a model of the flow stream of the solar wind kind of here. This is the velocity of the magnetosphere there. So it's like the effect of solar wind on the magnetosphere of the Earth. If this was not getting blown with wind, like the sun is always like blowing a wind of its heat and energy at the planets, including Earth. It's like blowing your hair back in the breeze. That's kind of what we're seeing. We're seeing the hair of the Earth rippling backwards in the breeze. So this is the magnetosphere going this way in the warm colors and looping back around in on itself in the cool colors, because you see this is negative velocity moving that way towards the right side of the screen, and positive velocity moving towards the left side of the screen there. So this is the color mapping here kind of shows you a gradient of it's going towards and away from the Earth. It loops back around and like kind of backwashes wind into the Earth. You can also sometimes see radiation belts around the Earth, well in the way that the velocities line themselves up here. But that's not the only thing we measure here. We also look at density, magnetosphere, geospace magnetosphere cut planes density. And this is plasma density. This is like a free soupiness of protons. Is it protons? Is it electrons? I feel like I'm going to say that wrong. Hold on. Going to the link kicked me out of YouTube. Oh, flowing locks of solar wind. Yes. Let me... Okay, yeah, it's positively charged ions and negatively charged electrons. So plasma is an ionized state made up of positively charged ions and negatively charged electrons. Protons are the radiation. Oh, right. Okay, I'm dumb. I'm not dumb, actually, but I like to say I'm dumb when I forget things that I know that I know. Okay. The solar wind. This is measuring the density. So the density is inverse of velocity, usually. You can have something dense and fast moving, but it's usually the denser it is, the slower moving it is. So this will kind of look like a reverse print of this. Usually we have a pretty high density in these little belts around the Earth, depending on the orientation of the magnetic poles. So the North Pole and the South Pole will show us you can see the axis of the Earth's rotation in these, where you see like the lines. And around this is then another layer of where there's extremely low density. That is in the little backwashing bubble there, the low density. And then there is another lens of high density, kind of protecting the Earth from the where you can really see the poles of the Earth. perpetuities of these belts right here. Is from the side, by the way. You can see where on the dusk and dawn side is getting a little bit more pressure right now. And you can see on the north and south side, like this is the North Pole, this is the South Pole. You can see where there's more pressure. So on the dawn side, on the South Pole, there's a lot more solar pressure. Let's look at where all this is coming from by looking at our solar weather. Active geomagnetic conditions observed. We are at a KP index of 4. That would explain why I feel so fucking crazy today. It's not just the full moon, but it is a full moon. We reached active geomagnetic conditions at 2:58 UTC. That UTC date would be the 16th. We are currently at like 4:30 UTC, so we've been here for a couple hours now. Things are going crazy, dude. Let's look at more data. Let's see how we got here. How in the heck did we get here? Hemispheric power is up. That means that we might have some aurora chances tonight. As you can see, Nunavut, Manitoba, and what's NT? I forgot what. We got Canada. We've got parts of Alaska and Iceland all looking like they might be able to see aurora today. So that's really exciting for them. This is the KP index, the planetary K index. Consists of 10 values ranging from 0 to 9. It is the measured KP of the past 3 hours based on 8 on the ground magnetometers. Just showing like active geomagnetic conditions, basically. Let's take a look at solar flares that we had today. Ooh, we had right when this happened, right before we went into active geomagnetic storm conditions, we had a M1.63 from the sun, but that is probably not what caused the geomagnetic storm that we're experiencing right now. This is probably from when we had a fairly large round of M-class flares pushing stuff towards us earlier in the week. Let's look at our real-time solar activity, because we did have some Earth-directed filament launches, plasma launches off of the sun. There are both proton storms and electron storms that come from the sun, and coronal mass ejection would include both, but there are different parts of the storm, just like the cloud and the rain are different parts of the storm, but they're both the storm. Like the cloud isn't the rain, but it's part of where the rain comes from. A filament launch or a coronal mass ejection releases mass from the sun. And the mass release from the sun is an oven cooking up the types of radiation or plasma or electrical field that we are experiencing. Am I making myself as clear as mud? I hope so. They classify the sunspot. Sunspots are where a lot of these launches come from. So it looks pretty tame right now, although this sunspot 3889 is still considered a beta gamma delta type configuration, which is a pretty complex one that is capable of producing and more likely to produce larger mass launches. It's kind of like a more complicated knot is easier to grab and rip than a really simple knot you don't really grab onto very well. The dark patterns here on the 193 angstrom view are these are coronal holes, and they create fast solar wind. So this is areas of low density of plasma that would be able to move faster, so they create a faster solar wind. So it's kind of like blowing out, where you see the black and bubbling up, getting ready to be blown away in the hotter, brighter areas there. Solar protons here is where we would measure the radiation storm, and that's the positive particles there. Let's see, latest CMEs. Okay, on the 14th, yesterday I didn't do a broadcast, I'm sorry. Looks like we had several launches. One of them was a type 2 coronal mass ejection, partial halo possible. This is a differencing image from Cactus, a sun observing satellite. Oh, did we miss it? There we go. Almost looks like watching a cell explode in a petri dish. It's kind of like the cytoplasm goes everywhere, falling out of the cell wall. I don't know, what metaphor would you like? To me, it looks like that thing of when a cell explodes. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 launches on the 14th, and 34 to 39, 6 launches. Wait. Up. That's not what I wanted to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I counted right. Launches today. One was very long duration launch. Coronal mass ejection here. Let's see. Load me up, baby. Come on. Load for me. We can do it. Okay, sometimes it doesn't want to cooperate with me. Let's just go look at our SDO imagery. Solar Dynamics Observatory in imagery. 3889 and 3892, I believe, are trying to form one big complex right here, but that is my opinion. Sun is quieter than it has been in the past. We are approaching solar maximum rapidly. Let's take a look at if anything from 394 is looking unsteady. This is where you can usually see these big ropey filaments start to jiggle and wiggle and work themselves loose. You can see these tethers like just flying and spitting out. The sun is always spitting shit out. Just running off at the mouth, the sun. And isn't that just like the sun? To believe in itself so much that it just keeps talking. Similar to me. I just keep believing in myself enough to keep fucking talking for so long. Anyway, I find it very fascinating to observe the pretty pictures that you can see in the sun. We have such pretty images. This is a composite imagery of 3 different wavelengths, just like we were talking about earlier with frequency. Frequency and wavelength are inverses, so you can kind of think about wavelengths the way that we were talking about frequencies earlier, representing a different type of wave that all can co-occur. The sun is blasting out visible light in wavelengths that range, the angstroms, the different color images here we're looking at are different colors of the sun, but they're not the color that we see colorized here. They've picked 3 different wavelengths to stack on top of each other that give you a good idea of what's happening with the coronal holes, the filaments, and the hottest sunspots. Because each type of thing gives off different wavelengths. Like a thunderstorm is a different color depending on which part of the cloud you're looking at, because of its relationship to light and what it's made out of. These are made out of different processes and are at different temperatures and will be radiating at different colors. And wavelengths are just colors, if you didn't get that already. Really cool linking up here. Watch these telegraphing activity here. These two spots look like they're drawing towards each other like a reverse mitosis. Like they're really talking, lighting up. Really interesting. And then this is the one big complex that is two sunspots that I think are trying to be a group, a super group, if you will. This is the magnetogram. This shows the polarity of magnetism at these different spots. So not only are there different temperatures of the reactions happening on the sun, there are also different magnetic polarities that are occur due to the temperature changes. Okay. What next? Brain broke for a second. Now we go to everyone's favorite science, astrology. I laugh because people will laugh at me for saying that there is a scientific history of astrology. There is a well over 2,000-year tradition of studying the placements of the planets in the sky and correlating them to on-Earth occurrences. I'm not going to argue for or against the scientific merit of astrology right now. I will argue the merit of it at another point in time, but today you just need to trust me on this. It's related to the weather. This is even larger than the solar weather, and meteorologists are just now starting to grasp that solar weather really does have an impact on terrestrial weather and vice versa. They're going to be really confused when they start to realize, oh shit, maybe astrology was real. Maybe the movement of the planets actually does have an effect on terrestrial weather, and all of that has an effect on the human body, mind, and psyche and the collective unconscious. Yeah, people are going to realize that eventually, but for right now, I am just a raving lunatic, technically. Neat. The one time I saw them, I was in Iceland. Oh, you've been to Iceland? That's so cool. Oh my God. I wish I want to go so bad. There's I don't know if you're aware, but there's a series of eruptions, volcanic eruptions that's been happening in Iceland, in Grindavik right now. And we're gearing up for our next one. It's not happening right now, but the magma chamber, the subterranean magma chamber is inflating and it's going to erupt again. You're mostly getting it. Doing great. Thank you. Cactus, that's hilarious. Those are my specialty. Those are your specialty? I raise succulents, of course, because I'm an insufferable millennial. But I have tried to raise cactus before. I live in the Southeast, though, and it seems that a lot of the natural air here is just far too humid. To even think about water in the same room as a cactus in the South is to kill it. Like, it's very humid here. Don't feel obligated on my account. I lecture occasionally. It kills my vocal cords. Gotta hydrate. Oh, yes. Oh, hi. Welcome to this podcast. I don't have clean drinking water right now. I am a survivor of Hurricane Helene. This is my emergency rations water. It is so fun to live through unprecedented time after unprecedented time. I wish we were in an unprecedented time. Like fungal hyphae growing towards each other. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. That is exactly what's happening on the sun. That's also what the waves do. Okay. My father-in-law was an astrologist in his younger days. Interesting. I've been following the eruptions since last October. Yeah, it is far too humid for succulent. Well, succulents can do okay. Cacti, for some reason, I know people who can keep them. I have never been able to keep cacti alive in the southeastern United States. But yeah. Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. I have a weather podcast, and one of the last episodes you can find on this channel is me the night that Hurricane Helene hit, or the night before it hit, being like, I think this is gonna be bad, and nobody watching. My cousin watched, and I also do stand-up comedy. That's like one of my fun hobby jobby things. And like 2 or 3 people from my stand-up scene believed me that it was going to be a bad, really bad disaster. And yeah, native prickly pears will do. Yes, I actually pass some on my drive home sometimes. I've never tasted the fruit, but I've heard it's great. I should try to grow those. I should stop with the barrel cactus. I have a fern here, my little friend that I'm trying to bring back to life. I rescued it from my parents' house, and it had a lot more brown on it when I took it back. And these leaves have recently perked up, and the moss that's growing on the top looks to be a little happier. Don't want to overwater it though, because it says only water once a week. And I bottom watered it. That's why I have the plate here. Okay. 2 people just tuned in and tuned out because I was talking about bullshit. I'm not talking about bullshit. I'm talking about surviving a hurricane and my love for houseplants. That's not bullshit. Okay. I did digress from the topic of why I think why I need to talk about the planets, though. Just grab a pad. If you plant them flat, it'll sprout multiple new pads. Ooh, okay. Okay, I'm going to do that. I might have to stop and make friends with a neighbor, but I will do that. Yeah, not if I get another hurricane, though. That is true. The prickly pears I drive by, looks like the pads haven't rotted, but the fruit that was on top did rot after the hurricane, which was really sad because it was like right at the perfect picking time of the season. It's really inconvenient to get a hurricane right when the fall harvest sets in. Who knew? Okay, let me talk about the weather. Let me talk about the planetary weather today. We've got a full moon in Taurus today. The moon is exalted in Taurus. This may not resonate. This may not make much sense at first, but I'm just going to plug right through and you might get where I'm going. The moon is opposite the sun. That means that the sun's on one side and the moon is on the other side of the earth. This is a geocentric view of astrology. So we are imagining in the middle of this chart is the earth. In the perfect center of this circle, the center point of this circle is supposed to be where the earth is. And that is where all the planets are surrounding the earth. That's why you'll see the sun moving through the zodiac. The zodiac is a belt of stars around the solar system that we do change. It does change position with respect to our time here on Earth over long periods of time. And that is why there is a difference between different types of astrology, because some people account for the changing of that and some people don't. But anyway, these are just the stars that are in the background of where we locate the planets. Now, Sun is at 24 degrees of Scorpio. That's fixed earth, or fixed water, I'm sorry, and that is opposite the moon conjunct Uranus at 25, and when it was full, it was at 24 degrees of Taurus. That's fixed earth. Fixed is the modality, earth and water are the elemental signs. This opposition is the dominant thing going on right now, but it also occurs at a trine with Pluto in Capricorn. Yes, we still observe Pluto as a planet here. In modern astrology, at least. It's a new modern discovery and it's a modern interpretation. That is also sextile to Neptune in Pisces. And so we've got those sextiles going on as well as this trine, meaning that this Uranian full moon has the strength and power and flowing energy, easy flowing energy towards Pluto, the power planet, the struggle, the higher octave malefic planet. So that is infused in the Uranian quality today. Not a great indicator of a super fun time. This is also flowing in easy aspect to Neptune, the planet of obfuscation, cloudiness, haziness, illusion, the dream, falling out of touch with the nature of reality, not just in like losing your mind, but also how being alive in a human body is falling out of touch with the nature of our higher soul being reality. That's a lot to digest, and you don't have to get that part yet if that doesn't resonate. But yeah, it's all about the illusion. So there's probably some self-delusion, some deception, some butting up against the dying breath of the Capricorn instinct. Capricorn is cardinal earth. This is very much in charge people. This is very much the established system of the way the world works right now. This is everything that me and my generation are fighting against. And also, me and my generation were born with Neptune and Uranus, where Pluto is here in Capricorn in the last decan of Capricorn. So decan is the there's 3 decans in each 30 degrees of sign. Also with this, we have a slight T-square, meaning an opposition and a square. This is a grand sextile, which is pretty easy, fun, almost too easy, almost a little too easy for this delusion and power and control stuff to slip into our Uranian moon. It's all clicking now. Okay. Sorry, I just had a realization about myself today, just now while I was talking. It's not for sharing with the class. Mercury is at 16 degrees of Sagittarius. That is opposite retrograde Jupiter in Gemini at 19 degrees. And both of those are squaring Pluto in Pisces. I mean, not Pluto, Saturn in Pisces at 12 degrees. So there's a pulling opposing force. And I think that this opposition is extra highlighted because Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Mercury rules Gemini. And their rulers are in each other's signs. So this is mutual reception and an opposition. And mutual reception and opposition only happens with mutable signs because they're the only ones who have opposite ruler ability. Like, you're not going to get mutual reception and opposition from cardinal or fixed signs because of the way that the planet rulerships are dispersed between the signs. Mutable ones are the only ones that have, well, wait, am I dumb? Hold on. You could have Mars in Libra opposite Venus in Aries. No, you couldn't. You couldn't have Venus and Mars that far apart. Yeah, you could. Okay, I spoke too soon. Maybe you could. But anyway, the mutual reception and opposition is jumping out at me as like, hey, you got peanut butter in my chocolate. You got chocolate in my peanut butter. You got Mercury in my Sagittarius. Hey, you got Jupiter in my Gemini. Mercury is mercurial. The messenger, the go between, the person that knows where everything's supposed to go, the person that knows every little bit of gossip and drama and juicy details, person, information, exchange of information, messengers, organization, knowing where exactly everything goes, knowing every microscopic little anal detail about stuff, including social dynamics, communication, how we communicate things, what intelligence is there to be communicated. Jupiter is this expansive, larger than life, abundant, almost overindulgent planet of benefit. It's a benefic planet, but also of higher expansion, learning. Jupiter is the planet we're going to move towards spiritually. It is a place where lack is not real. Jupiter is a place where abundance is more real than lack. Lack is an illusion that we experience on Earth. Lack is kind of mercurial mindset even. Maybe a little bit too earthy. Lack is an Earth thing. Lack is something we experience on Earth. It is a temporary experience. Abundance is what we experience on Jupiter. Mercury opposite Jupiter here is giving me the vibe of a Sagittarius overzealously being self-righteous about feeling like there is not enough to go around. Being opposed by the overly optimistic, positive, hopeful, spinning a grand tale of hope and forever sustenance, Jupiter and Gemini. This is saying like, yeah, actually there will always be enough and we can plan on there always being enough. This is saying, no, there's literally not enough. That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting at. That is all happening in the background. These are all intersecting around the Earth. So we've got this Jupiter-Mercury opposition. We've got the Sun-Moon opposition. We've also got a Mars-Pluto opposition. Yay! Mars-Pluto opposition is giving us... Oh, and this forms a basket, by the way. Pluto to Neptune, to Moon and Uranus, to almost late Cancer, but really early Leo. That's a basket formation. That is something really larger than life happening, and it highlights the opposition in the basket, which is the Pluto-Mars opposition. These are the two malefic planets. They're meanies. They're big old meanies. Mars is a planet of war, action, anger, heat, sex, like physical stuff, rather than Venus's love, beauty, immersion, and romance kind of thing. It's the masculine planet of decisive action taken. Pluto is a planet of control, power, separation, death, rebirth, recycling. It can be a good thing in that sometimes things need to die in order for something else to be born. And just like Mars can be a good thing, you need to do something sometimes, but sometimes what you do hurts people. But you still have to do a thing either way. So they are in tension, in conversation, and both being informed by Neptune, Uranus, and this full moon. So let me check on our comments here. Okay. But if they take and start to get big, keep them hacked back, or they'll take over. Yes, I have heard that. I know my constellations and basic astronomy and know nothing about astrology. Why are the various planets imbued with their specific characteristics, and why do specific planets rule specific constellations? What does ruling mean? Okay, this is where I believe the long history of astrology being studied by many different cultures throughout history is a scientific process, because that is where the specific characteristics come from. The specific characteristics of the planets and personalities I've been describing here come from what people have observed for 3,000 years. If you get into the Vedic tradition, the Indian tradition of astrology, there's a lot of really specific stuff. They've been studying it for so long, an unbroken lineage of study, that they can get really, really weirdly specific about stuff. But in modern astrology, we are kind of a blend of Hellenistic, Jyotish, the Ayurveda, the Vedic astrology. Oh, you're eating peanut butter and chocolate right now. Thank you for saying I'm not dumb. I am. Thank you. So rulership is like, we've got each planet can be in each sign. Each sign has a ruler planet. That is a planet who's kind of like in charge of that sign. Kind of like, this is my turf. This is my domain. I am happiest here. I am the most myself here. If like the planet Venus was a person, she would be like, I feel most myself when I'm in the place of Taurus or in the place of Libra, because she rules Libra and Taurus. They're imbued with certain characteristics. It's kind of a chicken the egg thing, but it is really from a long tradition of observing what happens during those time periods when those planets are in those signs, what happens, and when you can account for, well, this planet was here and this planet was here, so I know what those two have contributed to times in the past being, this must have happened to this. There's something called mundane astrology that has a lot of really specific associations between planets, houses. I didn't even talk about houses, planets and signs. This is all basically what people have noticed, patterns people have noticed over long, long, long stretches of time. And that's why I say it's part of a scientific process, because it has been observed and studied, and we have made hypotheses, tested them, and observed the outcomes, and reevaluated our hypotheses about what a planet or a sign means based on the outcome of events that we tried to predict with our working knowledge of the stars. Just like meteorologists predict the weather based on their current working knowledge of what a hydrometeor would do in the atmosphere under those conditions and what it has done in the past. And this is kind of like, the practice of astrology is kind of like a weather model itself, where we're not saying that this is deterministic because this is a opposition, this is a bad time. It's more like saying this was 90 degrees rotated away from this at the time that this happened. My microphone was perpendicular to the table at the time when it sat there, and it was parallel to the surface of the table at the time when it fell. It's like saying, it's not saying that the state of perpendicularness caused its rest on the table. There may even be another cause, like my hand picking it up and tilting it over, that made it go somewhere else. We're not claiming causation necessarily, though I personally think there is a very, very slight chance that there is a physical mechanism of causation of how this affects our hearts, minds, and electromagnetic fields. It's very full moon conjunct Uranus of me to be talking about this shit right now. It's a Venus day and a moon hour. It was just a Mercury hour, so that's why I talk so fucking much tonight. Mercury is associated with talking too much. There's also this is a lot of modern astrology is based on Hellenistic traditions, which is Greek myths, which is where we get the sign and planet names. Some of it is related to the myths associated with the planet names and sign names. That is some of where we get our associations of a planet. But it's more like the planet became named that because we knew that was the association with it when it was named that. Venus has a story about descending into Venus has a correlation with the Persephone myth. And she becomes both a morning star and a night star. She goes into the underworld and comes out of the underworld. Mercury goes back and forth, goes retrograde. When you hear about Mercury retrograde, all the common connotations of Mercury are put into strain or kind of a backward spin. And that's why people don't like Mercury retrograde. Well, the sun associated with solar gods, solar deities, beings, our soul, S-O-U-L, being like our S-O-L, sun, our soul, having connotations of self-individuation, masculine energy of expansion, and your solar plexus. There are so many connections between the planets and signs that I could talk for 15 hours and never run out of things to say. Do astrologers have any sort of standard data sets? I mean, over the millennia, what do they record? What they record are easy to verify large life events in a person's life, like birth, death, marriage, car accidents, job promotions. There are many things, just as many things as there are that can happen to a person in life, you can record that. But most people who record data and natal transits are the relationship of what the stars were doing when an event occurred to what the planets were doing when you were born. Each person has a native chart when they were born, and those are supposed to be what we reflect to. It's kind of like a natal chart is like saying this is a wave, like we a person are a wave that began at this exact place in time, and and you always reference the age of the wave to, oh, when a wave started at this point in this context, once it reached this phase, this occurred. So birth, death, marriage, children being born, major life events are types of events that are easily quantifiable and to turn into data sets. There are large databases of people's natal charts and when certain events happened to them. And statistical analysis could be done on those existing data, but the method of gathering that data has not been we haven't been able to significantly get a significant sample of the population, because this would need to be a population the size of the Earth. It is very hard to get a statistically significant sample from every single person, or out of every possible area and time and place a person could have been born. We are getting closer now than we ever have been with the advent of the internet. We're getting closer to that statistical significance than we've ever been before, but we're still really far away from what our modern scientific practice views as a good data set sampling strategy. So, of the people whose natal charts we know, we can study that. Of those people whose life events we know, we can study that. But it is very hard to say a lot of things with statistical certainty or confidence because of the sampling problem. In my opinion, that's why we have a lack of scientific research here, or research that would be respected by the scientific community. My father-in-law drew up a natal chart for all his children's potential spouses. Oh my gosh. So your father-in-law did your natal chart before you got married. You must have passed the test. You must have been a good match. There are, like I was mentioning the Indian, like the Vedic astrology traditions, there are people who would not let you marry their child if you had a certain chart. That is one pitfall of having a 3,000-year-old tradition, is that sometimes you get so certain and set in your ways that you have no wiggle room for interpretation. Make a mistake. I understand. I briefly taught biostats in grad school. Yeah, so you get it. It's a challenge that modern astrologers are going through, and a lot of modern astrologers are less anti-science than astrologers have been in the past, because there are more people who are like me who are interested in both science and astrology and the intersections now than there ever have been before. And I think that's because of the Neptune and Uranus conjunction in Capricorn in the early 90s. A lot of us right now are in our academic prime, who were born in the early 90s, and we are just really out here nerding out and trying to upset the established hegemony. There were some errors made in the scientific revolution, and I think that my generation was sent here to correct them. The errors made were thinking that there is a cutoff, a binary between astronomy and astrology. The two concepts were married and studied interchangeably by mathematicians for a long time before the scientific revolution. history of the scientific revolution is the history of turning some types of knowledge into religion or occultism. It's actually less of a scientific revolution and more of a theological revolution of what we consider to be a type of study versus a spirituality which can't be studied. But I also am of the opinion that spirituality is a lifelong study. Yeah, I think I'm going to take this down. I need to get going soon because I do live in a shared quarters. I have to be considerate of my heights and neighbors with the hours I keep. But yeah, this was today's weather tonight. I usually have some other people in the chat, but I guess they kind of tuned in and tuned out, or they'll come and watch it later and comment. So I would love to see you back here again if you're interested in it. I do this pretty much every night. You can subscribe and like ask for the notifications, and you'll get alerted whenever I go live. And yeah, because I have tried to keep a regular time schedule, and I am not very successful at it. I'm barely successful doing this every day. So yeah, I would love to see you back here and learn more about biology from you. That's one of my favorite parts about having people to talk to here, and why I do this show is I'm holding space for like people to teach me things and teach each other things. So bring your knowledge to the party. We've got a lot of different people that come hang out that have totally different knowledge sets, and I think it's a better world when we merge them together, not just convince each other what stuff is. But I'm not in a shelter type situation. I'm in a I am currently living in a sober house, like a halfway house, like a recovery home, whatever. I had just gotten out of rehab the week before the hurricane hit. So that was because I'm an alcoholic. Who would have guessed that a meteorologist in the current day would maybe be a little bit sad sometimes? I say that sarcastically because there's this thing called burning building syndrome, where climatologists have a disease all their own, where they have like a mental trauma from being gaslit about their research for their whole lives, of like people not believing in climate catastrophe when it's happening all around us. Yeah, it's a little bit stressful to actually be aware of what the weather's doing and people not believe you. So maybe drink a little bit too much. Used to drink a little too much to deal with that. Now I don't, because I live with some other sober people and my housing depends on it, and try to make positive changes in my life so that the world can make positive changes. I think the world gets better when I get better, choosing a different timeline. Anyway, excellent. Congratulations. I got sober. You got sober 3 years ago. Congratulations. That is awesome. That's really cool. I keep meeting people like in my journey that are sober, and I'm like, I never expected to like realize how many people are sober. It's awesome. So yeah, I'm in a recovery house, so I need to not talk all night long because people here are trying to live a normal fucking life. And staying up all night talking to strangers on the internet is apparently not a normal life for me. We're strangers. Maybe my comment are also sober, have like one person has like 10 plus years, and another person is like slowing down their drinking, and another person is like investigating. It's all so interesting the way that our coincidences happen. Yes, my schedule is usually about 10 or 11 p.m. Eastern time is when I will get on here. 10 or 11 Eastern time is about when I have time to slow down, process the day, and finally make it to sitting down at my computer at home. The planet frying has contributed significantly to my shitty mental health the past few years. That and perimenopause. Oh, girl. Yeah, I get it. I'm 31. I'm not necessarily perimenopausal, but I have struggled with my hormonal balance for well over a decade, and it is a journey. I started off this broadcast by saying I am not having a great mental health day. I'm not having the worst mental health day. I didn't drink, but I am not having the greatest mental health day. But doing this show, meeting you, getting to explain my favorite concepts in the world to somebody again is my headache's gone. I'm not worried about things I cannot control. Whereas when I started the show, I was very concerned with some things that I couldn't control. And now I am remembering. Now I'm remembering that there are things I cannot control. All I can control is myself. And I feel fine about that. Feel good about that. I am not stressed about those things I cannot control that I was at the beginning of the broadcast. So with that, I think sitting down here with my salt lamp helps. Even if it doesn't work the way that people claim it does, which I think it does. It's just a very calming, pretty, glowy rock. Look how pretty. All right, I'll be back. Great meeting you. Good night. I'll send you off with a little compassion. Thank you. I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.